when the COVID shutdown happened, we were looking for projects and small amounts of little excitements or joy. I think a lot of people were, obviously. So we have our local friend and stainless welder who was light on work, as I think most people were. And we had some extra tank parts. We would put us together a little sailing vessel for our coolship when we were able to fill it again in the fall and winter. And obviously Mike had the time, so we now have the SS Gravy, our coolship sailing vessel that we'll use on occasion. I'm Trevor Rogers, the head brewer, co-founder, and co-owner, along with my wife Lindsay, of Garde Brewing. We're out here in Tillamook, Oregon. We're a spontaneous fermentation brewery. Everything we do is fermented using strictly native yeast and bacteria. It overnights in our coolship, where it gleans those yeast and bacteria before being fermented in oak vessels, whether it be some of these slightly larger ones like you see here, or some more standard sized barrels in our second story. What is a coolship? What is a coolship? That's a great question. So an easy reference is that it's similar to a giant metal cake pan. Effectively, we run wort, the unfermented beer, straight from our kettle where it's boiling into there. So it's the old method of cooling wort prior to fermentation. One of the benefits we see is that it also allows for the introduction of native yeast and bacteria from the air, which will, after it's transferred into oak the next day, provide for the fermentation.
What makes the location out here in Tillamook unique or different than, say, if you were doing this in Portland?
If I had a good answer to that, I'd provide it. I don't know that we've been able to ascertain what specifically about this location made us happy. Having done some trials in different locations, this is what we targeted. I don't know if it's a combination of the little bit of sea breeze, the coastal range just to the east of us, the very agricultural valley that we're operating in right now, or a combination thereof. But for us, it proved to be really positive. Typically, you need it to be shallow so that you have it cool at a reasonable pace. Too deep, and you end up both taking too long for production purposes, but also you end up in a temperature range that favors bacterial growth. So if you're quite warm in the 100 to 110 degree range, you're going to have any ambient bacterial populations, if you're holding in that for hours, that are going to explode in there and make something that's kind of undesirably acidic. So large and shallow is the ideal. Little more time intensive perhaps, because you can't immediately cool something down and then transfer it into a tank on the same day. So for a larger production brewery, that would necessitate a slowdown of production. But other than that, there's nothing more complicated, I think. It just happens to be the way that we have found our favorite beers to be produced. So we brew typically 2.5 times per week on average. Obviously we don't have half brews, but that window of brewing is about 6 months out of the year. So that works out to about 10 per month, in about 16, 17 barrel batches. We favor the cooler months because the ambient bacterial populations are lower, and so we end up on average producing something that has more balance and complexity versus something that's more aggressive. So we're a small brewery. We only produce a little under 1,000 barrels per year of total output, although we do have multiple times that in oak by necessity.
Tell me about the gravy boat.
Do you want to know about my grandmother's gravy boat or the stainless one that was floating around in our coolship?
Are they related?
No, unfortunately not. I wish. My grandmother's is a porcelain and probably much nicer than ours. I'm going to have a sip of beer.
Please. How many other coolship gravy boats are there in the world?
I'm gonna guess 0, but I could be mistaken on that account. I hope there's more. They might have like better names. This is just the best we can come up with on the fly.
What's the chances of getting a SS Gravy Boat series of beers?
It's higher than 0%. That's something that we'll have to run by my wife, Lindsay, who usually shoots down my bad ideas. And this might get lumped in with the other bad ideas I have.